Hello there, and thanks for joining me for this live stream. I'm Aaron Rutten, and it is my mission to help artists like you enjoy digital art and learn some new skills along the way. Today I'm going to be drawing in Photoshop CC 2019. Just came out a couple of days ago, and I am going to be exploring drawing using symmetry. And I'm going to do a Halloween themed piece of art. I might then take it into Adobe Illustrator and convert it into vector. Who knows what I'll do with it. Maybe I'll make it into a shirt. Maybe it'll just be a piece of art for the sake of being art. Feel free to comment in. Let me know where you're watching from. Mr. Man's here. Alice is here. Dragon Girl's here. Crinkle Cat's here. Abigail's here. Mine HSC is here. Good to see y'all. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just start drawing. I'm not going to get too deep into how to use this stuff, these new features, because I've actually put out a video yesterday going into tutorials on how to use these features, so I'm just going to focus on drawing. I'm going to do the radial mode, and while I'm getting this set up, feel free to comment in with your Halloween theme suggestions. I'm going to make a design. So I need like an overall theme for the design or some design elements. I'll just quickly give you an idea of kind of what it's going to be like. You know, I'm going to do kind of a pattern. Now it's not going to be this shape or this many segments or anything, but you know, it could be like, I mean, this is just an example. It could be like skulls or, you know, pumpkins or something. But more elaborate than that. It could just be abstract too. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, literally like drawings of Halloween things. That's kind of the idea. Mine's watching from Brazil, Jail's watching from Houston, Dragon's watching from Bosnia, Toffel's watching from England, Abigail's in Kentucky, Crinkle Cat says, I remember last year for Halloween you dressed up as Bob Ross. That I did. That I did. You'll have to check out, if you haven't seen it, you'll have to check out those live streams. Alice is watching from Germany. It's great that we can all get together and enjoy art, no matter where we are in the world. Abigail suggests Headless Horseman. Mine says that they love this Photoshop update, having lots of fun with it. It's got some great tweaks in it that just make life a lot easier, you know. I don't know for how many versions now I've been really frustrated with Control-Z doing undo and redo, you know. And yeah, you can change the keyboard shortcut yourself, but I don't know. And then, you know, there's, like I said in my review video, there's some things like not having to go up to the top in the properties bar and click on the commit or cancel button to commit to transformations and text. Okay, so not a whole lot of suggestions here for things to do, so I'll just go ahead and put on the old thinking cap here. Jail's got a good one. Gothic, Victorian, Vintage Halloween. Now, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what that looks like, so let's see. Let's see if we can get some images of that here. Okay, so basically just Victorian era outfits. There's probably some design motifs as well. So let's do, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm talking about what I'm doing. I'm doing some searches here. I don't want to show what I'm searching for because you know how Google is. It could show just about anything that would not be appropriate. So okay, so there's a lot of like flourish kind of stuff with flowers. So it could be kind of like dead flowers or something for Halloween. That way it has kind of a dark theme and it's kind of gothic. Let's see, a funny skull says mine. We could incorporate some skulls in it. So let's see, now we want to decide on how many slices here for the thing. Right now it's at 5. What's a good Halloween number? I mean, I could do like 13, like Friday the 13th, but that creates too many segments, and that reduces the amount of detail I can put in each segment. So it should be lower. Any suggestions for numbers between, let's say, 3 and 9? Crinkle would like to see a happy pumpkin. So I suppose I could do asymmetry in it as well, and I could have like a centerpiece with something symmetrical around it. Could definitely do that. Jail likes 9, Crinkle likes 6. Even or odd number. Let's try 6 and see. We'll just do a little test here, see how we like it. Yeah, that could look kind of cool. I can almost see like a octopus or a Medusa head or something. So we'll go with 6. So I'm just going to kind of experiment here because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Now I could do like a rose or something. And this is just going to be kind of a rough draft just to see if I like doing this. That could be kind of cool. Jail says neat. Abigail likes it. Okay, so I'll just do a better drawing of the flowers then. Oops. So I need to keep it somewhat simple. And all you really got to imagine is just kind of a spiral of overlapping petals that start out smaller in the middle and get bigger as they move out. Oh, it's nice to be able to do those undos. Not just undoing in general, I just mean being able to use the shortcut as it should work. So as the slices start to go around, as I start to see it flipped upside down, I don't like the way it looks upside down, so that's an opportunity then to go in with your eraser and make it look aesthetically pleasing from that new angle. So it was, to me, it was just looking a little too flat on that side. Now it's a bit busier. Just continuing to clean this up, get it looking exactly the way I want. Might seem like I'm making minor changes here, and you know what, I probably am, but you should have a vision, you know? There's no point in really making art if you don't have a vision, and maybe you develop that vision line by line as you go along like I'm doing here, but you have to be able to look at stuff and go, I like it or I don't like it. If you can't do that, it's going to be really hard to be an artist. And the only way to know is to try. So you try it, you make a line. If that line doesn't work, change it or move on, and then come back to that line later when the other lines around it help it make more sense or make it more obvious the direction that you should go. You just do, and you just take step by step to get to your goal. You know, whether you're walking somewhere or whether you're drawing, each line is a step. And you know, sometimes, like, if you know where you're going, that's one thing. If you're trying to draw from reference and you're trying to copy it exactly, that's like having a map and knowing exactly where you're going and following directions through GPS. But sometimes you go on adventures and you don't know where you're going and you don't have a map. Like if you go hiking or something, you know, you have general guidelines. But a lot of being on an adventure involves a lot of improvisation, and you know, improvisation is important in art as well. So I like to make stuff up as I go along. I don't like to overthink it too much, because there's no advantage to really doing that for every style of art. You know, there are some styles of art where it's good to have everything planned out, but there's also a lot of value that you get out of just trying things and seeing what happens. You know, Bob Ross called them happy accidents. All that really is improvisation working out in your favor. And you know, people will quote him saying that, you know, you can't make mistakes, and in a sense that's correct, but there are some mistakes that Bob would say, you know, like don't bring your dirty color back into the white part of your sky, or make sure to use a dry brush and, you know, beat the devil out of it, because otherwise if you don't, then you'll bring the dirty paint back on the canvas. So there are rules, but there aren't so many rules like in a creative sense. Like you can create whatever you want, but there are some things you shouldn't do in traditional and digital art that will ruin your work, ruin all your hard work, you know. So those are the mistakes, I think, the real mistakes. But one of those mistakes is avoiding drawing from imagination, in my opinion, because drawing from imagination is a really great way to learn how to improvise. So I am drawing loosely from a reference, but also just kind of trying to just get the general feel of it and not really focus too much on it being an exact duplicate of my reference. I also kind of know what a rose looks like. I've drawn roses before. It's just about getting the kind of aesthetic that I want. See, that was a happy accident. I didn't intend to have that little thing come up over the flower, but I made an accidental mark. And you know what? I meant to do that, right? And then the stem, if I'm ready to do the stem, which I don't know that I am. I feel like there's an angle here that's bothering me. So again, it helps to not focus just on one slice. Just like it helps when you're working on a portrait or any other kind of art to flip your canvas horizontally or turn it upside down. And you get a different view of it and you can see, I don't know if mistake is the right word, but things that you're not 100% happy with. Now the question is, how can we make this stem interesting? I think we could have it come down and then maybe we can make it like wrap around on itself. This is where you just do it and you just improvise, you know? I'm not trying to think of this stuff ahead of time. I'll try it, and if I don't like it, then I'll do something else. Sometimes it helps just to go ahead and overlap your line. That way you can see that it's where it should be. And then just erase that overlap that you don't want. And I need to be careful about how I continue it through here. Jill says it's hard for me to be creative. For the past few years, my creative bug has oddly and sadly disappeared. I can't seem to get it back. How to be creative when you don't feel creative? That's a tricky situation to be in. I think, you know, there's ways you can prompt yourself to be creative. You can challenge yourself to do things, or you can take, let's say like holidays or birthday presents. You know, if you're a creative person and you make art, maybe you've been encouraged by people around you, or maybe you haven't. Nevertheless, you could make somebody a piece of art or whatever it is that you create. Do that for them for a present or for a gift. It doesn't even have to be for any occasion. It could be a family member, it could be somebody's pet, it could be for a friend, or you could even, you know, just put yourself out there, however, like whether or not it's just like in your community around you or online, and offer to do stuff for people for free, or just keep an ear out, you know. I've had lots of friends and, you know, like friends of friends that were recommended to me ask me to do projects, and I've, you know, done lots of projects for people. And so that can be motivation to be creative, but it's a different type of creativity that then I guess is kind of dictated a bit by the people that you're doing the work for, but it gets you going. But you have to have a purpose, and you have to have a reason, and you have to have motivation, and maybe that takes looking within yourself to find that. Now, somebody said they don't like the leaves being symmetrical, and you know what? I have to agree with you on that. So in theory, you probably could go back and forth between the radial mode and the mandala mode. So that way you could draw with bilateral symmetry and then have the single lateral symmetry as well. Try to get it pretty close there. I don't care to really have it be absolutely symmetrical. Do like that little doodad that comes in front, but maybe I'll move that somewhere else. Let's try that and see if that works. Sometimes it's good to have complete symmetry, but sometimes it's good to have asymmetry. It really just depends on what your objective is. You can certainly have both as well, as I'm going to do here. Something kind of like that is looking good to me. So let's see here. I kind of like the way that this center ended up with this little area here where I was going to have it kind of curve on in toward the center, but I like how it just ends. And then I think this needs to be cleaned up a bit. Oops. I work in Corel Painter so much, I keep trying to hit N for the eraser, because that's what it is in Corel Painter. Okay. Now I think I want to probably add some thorns to this. This helps kind of imply the form as well. Now I have to be careful not to interrupt the overall aesthetic of this little swirly area here for the stem. I don't like that one. So I'm out of undos here. So I'm going to do this. Another happy accident. Jill says, do I like Corel Painter or Photoshop, and would I recommend Corel Painter to someone who doesn't have the money to keep paying for Photoshop? Depends on what you want to do. I personally use both in my workflow. So Photoshop, I personally don't like it for painting. I don't use it for painting or drawing. Like what I'm doing here, I could do in half a dozen art applications that have symmetry and just your basic brush tool. So there's nothing special here about what I'm doing. So if I were only doing this style of art, then it wouldn't really matter. You know, there'd be no reason to really use Photoshop or Corel Painter. You could use Krita or something, which is free. But if you want something that's a bit more polished like Corel Painter or Photoshop, you would have to really weigh out, you know, what your workflow is. Like, do you do mostly painting, or do you do mostly image editing kind of stuff? Because for me, Photoshop is good to do image manipulation, tweaking colors, you know, like fixing things, getting everything nice and polished. Whereas Corel Painter is strictly for painting, and each application can do some of what the other application can do, but neither does everything very well. Or neither application can do everything really well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. So I do all my painting in Corel Painter because Corel Painter's brushes do a better job of simulating the look of natural media with a lot of randomization. They're not just repeating stamps that just rotate. There's actually, like, you know, dynamic brushes that can really change a lot, and you have a lot of control over all the different looks you can get out of a brush. It's set up for painting and for illustration, whereas Photoshop is like a Swiss Army knife. It's pretty good at a lot of different things, but it really excels at manipulation of images, and it has some brush tools, and it's improved quite a bit since they added the Kyle brushes. But even so, it still doesn't even come close to doing what Corel Painter can do. And even Corel Painter can't do it all, you know. There's a lot of stuff in applications like Rebel and Expressi that simulate fluid media much better than any other application. So if you really want to get into watercolors and dripping stuff, you know, there's specific applications for that. So it's the right tool for the job, and not one app. There isn't one application that's going to do absolutely everything. So I think you'd be pretty well off with Photoshop and another application, but, you know, it really depends on what you want to do. I am going to very soon be revisiting my review of the paid and free art applications, doing a comparison. It's been a couple years. It's going to take going through each application quite a bit, though. It's tricky because unless you work with an application for a long time, it's hard to get a feel for like absolutely everything it can do. Mine says, why don't I like to use Photoshop for painting? Well, I mentioned earlier the brushes are pretty much just a stamp that just, it's a single stamp, and it might rotate, and it might scale, and it might change in opacity, and it might change in hardness, and it might blend with, you know, it has these certain properties, but overall it's just a single dab. Whereas in Corel Painter you can have a brush that has particles that follow the laws of nature, and you can exactly fine-tune how the particles work. So you could have one brush that doesn't look the same every time you paint with it. Each mark is going to look completely different. And then you can add layers and layers and layers of randomization upon that to get exactly the kind of brush that you want and exactly the kind of look that you want. I create brushes every month, so I can make a brush go from looking like a paintbrush to looking specifically like lightning to looking specifically like a specific granite texture of rock or something. You know, I can do a lot more. In Photoshop, it seems like you can do a lot because there are a lot of sliders, but ultimately your brush is still very, very rooted in ancient brush technology. It hasn't evolved. It's barely starting to creep beyond that point now. So people use it so much because other people use it and it's like the application, but people are just, in my opinion, don't want to learn something new, and I don't blame them, you know? But it's worth trying something else to see what the difference is, and it doesn't mean you have to stop using Photoshop. It just means that, in my opinion, Photoshop should be a component in your workflow, but it shouldn't be the primary source for doing your artwork. If you're a painter, if you're just doing what I'm doing here, it doesn't matter, you know? You could use any art application to do line art like this. But that's my opinion. I'm just a dude on the internet. People get very passionate about, you know, people's opinions, but I have objectively tried a lot of art applications. Like I've made a list of criteria that I consider to be important, and I've ranked a lot of applications based on that. So my opinion is based on research and upon industry experience, and it's just my opinion. Doesn't mean it has to determine what anyone else uses. So this could be cleaned up quite a bit more in terms of the lines being cleaner and more consistent. The question is, you know, how much work do I want to put into this drawing? Like, what am I going to do with it? I'll have those kind of come to a point like that. In the center, we'll have a creepy eyeball looking thing. Yeah, something like that looks kind of cool. Toffel says, have I tried PaintStorm Studio? I just recently finally got it to actually install, and I booted it up for a minute, booted it up with my floppy drive and my old computer. I loaded the application and tried it for a minute. Gotta say, I wasn't all that impressed from my initial look, but I know I didn't go through everything, so I'm going to give it another try. I realize cost is a factor too, and it's not a very expensive application, so something to keep in mind. But initially, how it felt, it didn't feel like it was better than Krita. So Krita's free, so it's gonna be in my review, but I have to go through it and try it, and I want to be fair as I can be. Shingo says you can program brushes to do that on Photoshop. To do particle brushes. There are particle brushes that you can get as a third-party plugin, but those are made by Corel. As far as I know, that's the only particle brush that you can get in Photoshop is a particle brush made by Corel that's in Corel Painter. But there's lots of other things besides that, you know. The interface just doesn't really feel like it's really made for art. It's made for a lot of different things, and you can customize your interface. It's one thing I like, but not quite in the same way. But to each their own. If anybody wants to use Photoshop, that's perfectly fine. If you want to use MS Paint, that's fine by me. I think there's a more specific kind of art that you would make with something like Corel Painter or Rebel or Art Rage versus something like Photoshop or Medibang, or, you know, there's certain applications that they feel like they're more for drawing and illustration, and there's some that feel like they're more for simulating paint and like making you feel like you're in the painting, because a lot of what turns traditional painters off to digital painting is it doesn't have that aesthetic, like you feel like you're working with paint. And the applications that do go for that feel, definitely you can, there's a clear distinction between those and the ones that are just digital brushes. So let's see. I'm going to go to Paths. It's that plane I'm not using. I'll just kind of take a look at it for a minute here. Now maybe I can do something that's kind of like a spider web or something to fill that in. Oops, there I go, trying to add layers to my paths panel. So let's see, we already kind of have these lines here, so we could just simply find a point. Maybe even do that as a guide. Oops. Trying to get it perfectly even here. Or as even as I can. I don't know if it's going to be perfect. Well, the question is, do I like the way that that flows aesthetically? I don't think I do. It's wanting to delete my path. Don't delete my path. Some weird functionality there. I wonder if that's a bug, because it seems like if I had something selected, it should have just gone to whichever layer I had selected, but instead it insisted on keeping my path selected and wanted to delete it. So you can use smoothing here if you want a super smooth line. Does it make it harder though to draw? I think I like that better. Okay. I wonder if that'll be enough segments for it to read as a spider web. I overpainted it intentionally here so I can just easily clean it up like this. I want to have it not be in the center here. Okay, let's hide the path here. Kind of cool. It might make a little more sense if we add color. It'll make some things stand out a bit more. Those lines are a bit too thick, so I'm just gonna shave them down a bit. trying to balance out the lines here. That's what I'm doing. So it's not unevenly thick. And seeing how that looked for a minute there. Okay, that's starting to look better. Abigail says that looks really nice. Thank you, Abigail. Jill says I should add a spider somewhere. That would add some asymmetry. I gotta say, in regards to symmetry, it's a little bit difficult, a little bit slow to use the symmetry tool in this application compared to some of the other ones. But you can save your symmetry plane as a path, so that's nice. So there are some advantages and disadvantages, I guess. Oh, gotta turn that smoothing off there if I want to be able to draw. No, I gotta turn this back on. It makes it hard to see what you're doing. There must be a way to hide it while keeping it active. Nope. Target path, that's not it. Oh well. Something to look into later. There should just be a button that you can click up here that just hides the guides while keeping them active. So otherwise they get in the way and then you can't see what you're trying to draw when you're drawing right on top of the guide. Now, let's see, what did we do? We did 6 segments. It goes kind of slow. It's like that in some other applications too. When you do mandala mode, the more slices you add, the more brush strokes you're doing simultaneously. I'm just experimenting here, just drawing from imagination. Don't think that helps. Do a little spider like that, but that doesn't fit in there either. So I just wanted to, that was just kind of an experiment to see how that would work, but it doesn't fit into the radial symmetry. Do something like that. Could just do a better drawing of a spider. Jeanette says, what does it mean that it saves the path? Well, here in the paths panel, this blue guide that you can see, if I hide all this, that's my symmetry plane. So this is like, if you could think of it like it's actually a layer or a physical, not a physical object, but like an actual layer that you could take and you could move it around, or you could, let's say, let me explain it in a different way. In other applications, you can pop open symmetry and you can draw, but if you close the application or close the artwork, in some instances, in some applications, when you reopen the artwork, that symmetry plane might be completely reset. So it might go back to being 4 slices, and it's not the end of the world to have to set it back to 6 or whatever it was. But in this case, the symmetry plane itself is actually saved with the Photoshop PSD document, and it's its own layer component that you can use. So if you customized it and you wanted to reuse it, or, you know, there's lots of different reasons why you might want to do that. So let's see with the spiders here. It's going to do a better spider drawing. Let's do this too. Why not just get it lined up nicely here? Well, let's try this. I'm gonna get a little experimental here. So let's see. Radial 6, or no, we want mandala 6, I think. Let's try that. There we go. I'm going to have to move that up a bit. And the question is, if I move that, oh, it'll move the whole layer, so that won't work. So I'm going to have to do what? I have to be more careful about where I plan my spider. Because if I move the layer, I'm going to move all of the spiders together. So that's not going to work. So I need to know that my legs are going to go down a little bit, so the abdomen has to be probably more like right here. And then the thorax. So I need to account for all that down there. There we go, that's better. Okay, they're a little bit bigger than I wanted, but they don't go off the canvas, so that's good. I think I'll do without the eyes. I'm going to zoom out a bit too, just to get a feel for how it looks kind of small. So now I notice that it needs contrast. Now it's good to just go ahead and keep your artwork centered. Don't really ever move it off to the side while you're drawing in symmetry. That'll make sure it stays lined up. So even if you accidentally delete your symmetry path, you just put in a new one with the same amount of segments and you're good. So I'm going to try just filling this in and then having the roses be black. Or I'll fake them being black by filling them in like this. I think I like the way that's working. I'm trying not to get too close to the edge. So I want there to be an even gap all the way around the sides. And I can use my eraser if I need to. I'm gonna try to figure out what to do with this. I mean, it is art, so, you know, I get value out of that, but maybe I can print it out. Or make a shirt design out of it or something. It might be a bit too complicated for a shirt. We'll have to see. Alright, a little bit down here, and then we're almost done with the black rose petals. And have those edges be a little bit jagged on the leaves. Jill says it could be for a bandana. That would be cool. Jeanette says it almost looks like a dream catcher, but instead of catching bad dreams, it creates them. Let's see. Oh, I forgot a little bit of area here. Don't forget that part of the flower too. Yeah, I like that. Almost kind of looks like fangs. A little bit of hatching here, which will give it some dimension. I'm just looking at it from a distance. Jail's roommate would love to have this as a bandana. It'd be cool. I'll have to see if there's anywhere to print bandanas. I'm sure it can be done. And it's already in a square, so I guess all you'd really need to do is just find a place to print it on a sheet of fabric that's bandana sized. Good idea. Okay, so coloring. Thinking about coloring. So let me do some hatching in the middle. Help to kind of separate things a little bit. Adding some stippling here. Create some texture. Now here and there in a few places, I'm going to add some asymmetry. So I'm just putting some little dots here and there on some of those darker areas. Catalina's here. Good to see you, Catalina. Tomas is here too. Good to see you, Tomas. Tomas wants to know if I'm willing to do critiques. I actually did do that at one point, and the reason why I stopped is because I got way too many submissions for critiques. So occasionally I will go through that backlog, but that's just kind of one of those things that didn't turn out to be sustainable in the long term. So I'm trying to think about what else I want to do to this. Do I want to add color? It'd be nice to add some hints of color here and there. Add the red there. This feels like it should be red. And then maybe this area here as well. And I could try doing the roses. Might be too much red. I'll just move my paths where I can see it along with symmetry. Well, now the roses don't really read as black roses. Catalina agrees, too much red. I think so. But is any red too much red? That's the question. Like, is that better? Should the centered part not be red? Should it be a different color? I mean, it might be fine just being black and white. I'm alright with that. Could be inverted like that too. I kind of like it inverted. Yeah, let's do it inverted. So I need to merge these, and then I need to invert the color. And the background needs to be black. Okay, so let's go with this. Make sure it's nice and solid there. And then I'm going to pop over to Adobe Illustrator. Just gotta find the file here. So I probably, you know, ideally would have probably cleaned this up a bit more. By that I mean I would have been a little bit less rough with my lines. Maybe gone over it one more time, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just move forward with this. So I actually probably could have just left it inverted, because I need it to be inverted in order to be able to turn it into vector. And this is going to remove a bit of the detail from it, but it's also going to clean it up quite a bit. Playing with the threshold here to determine what's going to be kept and what's not. So you'll notice it looks thicker if I do more threshold, thinner if I do less. I think something like that will work for me. So then I expand it and I re-invert the colors. Show that background again. Oh, that's weird. It's like trying to fill it in with different colors. It's not at all what I asked it to do. So it doesn't consider itself to be one solid layer. So I think what I'm going to have to do here is do this. I have a plan, don't worry. Sweet, here we go. So this is the new Freeform Gradient. in Adobe Illustrator. So I can place these different nodes here and there and everywhere. I can create some pretty cool effects like this. So when you move these nodes around, that's just basically spreading the gradient from one area to another. I just want something kind of colorful, maybe like that. Just thinking about the colors and how I want to do them. Those are kind of fun colors. I don't know if they're necessarily Halloween-y. You can delete nodes like that. Put that in the middle like that, and then have it kind of fade out too. Keeps it a little more within just a certain range of colors. Catalina says, I missed how you did that. Basically, this is a new mode for the gradient tool in Adobe Illustrator, and you can select Freeform Gradient, and then these little pins have a gradient. So I'll do this. So you got this little pin, right? Or little dot, and then the gradient fans out from that center point and fades out, and then it would fade into the next gradient. So they would go, you know, in between each little pin. So right now I have 4 pins. I have, this is hard to line up. I'll just show you on the thing. Everything's backwards. In the top, right, left, and then the bottom, left and right, those are orange pins, and then in the center is a purple, so the gradient's going to fade from the corners into the center from orange to purple. I think I like this color scheme. This could be versatile too, so like if I wanted to make a bandana out of it, or have it just be black and white, I could. I think I like that. So I'm going to save this now. Might as well give it a name. Call it Spider Rose Color. And then to get the black and white version, all I have to do is just hide the color. So I have the best of both worlds. I kind of like both. I think I like the black and white one the best. But this one's going to pop out more and be more colorful. Angelica's here. Good to see you, Angelica. Thank you for the compliment. Jail likes it too. Catalina likes it with the color. Well, I can have 2 different versions, one with and one without. And can maybe I'll print the one with color as a poster, and then the black and white one, maybe I'll look into making a bandana. Maybe you'll see me in one of my next videos wearing a bandana. I'll have to see how it'll print as a shirt, because it does have some very, very fine areas, And depending on the printing process, if it's one of the ones where they cut out little pieces and kind of print them on, those don't like little tiny, very, very fine little details. All right, well, I think with that, I am going to wrap this up by answering questions, whatever questions remain. How do you all like the new addition to the background? I got the lights. I'm trying to make my lighting kind of Halloween-y. Got the pumpkin behind me. Well, this is cool. I can make it any color I want, really. Oh, come on. There we go. It can be red. Or it could be green. The remote is being blocked by something. There we go. Can have a green background. Or blue. But I like it kind of as the purple. Come on, change. There we go. Back to the way I like it. So it is like it's like one of those LED rope lights, but it has a remote that can change it to different colors. Red, green, blue, cyan, yellow, purple, and white. And then there's some different animation modes. Something to spice up the background, you know. Trying to get more interesting lighting going on in my videos. Tactical Gamer says you're the best. Thank you, Tactical Gamer. As always, you can get rid of that name slate. You can become a member of my channel for $4.99 a month, and as a member, you get access to all kinds of stuff that the general public does not get access to. Early releases of my videos. I might be doing some special live streams only for members. You can also get access to my Discord and emojis that I created myself that can be used in my chat for my live streams, and you even get a badge so everybody gets to know that you're supporting my channel and that you're super awesome. If membership's not your thing, there's also Super Chat. That's a little $sign down on the bottom of the chat, and if you enjoyed this live stream, you learned something from it, you were inspired, or you were just entertained, Super Chat me some money. It helps full-time artists like myself keep on doing what we're doing. It's motivation to do more of these live streams and make more videos. Jail says, is there a holiday or theme you get more creative about, or it just happens? Well, I think Halloween for me is probably about the only holiday that I enjoy or celebrate. Society forces you to to participate in a lot of holidays. Forces me to. Not everybody feels the same way I do, but I'm not a fan of Christmas or Thanksgiving or 4th of July. They all have their negative connotations, and they've all been commercialized to the point of not really even being about their original meaning to begin with. Halloween, I guess you could say the same for that. You know, like the original pagan Halloween, I'm sure didn't involve candy, Jolly Ranchers and stuff, cheap, you know, latex masks. But it's a pagan holiday. It's just kind of something fun to do. You get to dress up. You get to be creative. It's one of the few holidays, if not maybe the only in a sense, that allows you to be creative. I know with Christmas and other holidays, you have an opportunity to decorate in whichever way you want, and that's creative. But Halloween kind of takes it to that extra level where you're trying to impress people with a costume, or, you know, win a costume contest. So I like that. Not a fan of like the candy and all that stuff. I feel like that's kind of commercialism creeping in, and it's bad for people's health too to be consuming that much candy, even if it is like once a year. Catalina says, do I like to dress up for Halloween? Most definitely. And I have You'll see in some upcoming videos I could have dressed up for this one. I did in my last live stream. But it gets hot in here too. Although fortunately, since I'm doing the spooky Halloween lighting where it's supposed to be kind of dimmer, I'm not getting blasted by two giant lights. So it's not too hot. These LEDs don't put off heat, so that's nice. Alright, well, I appreciate everybody watching today. I'm going to go ahead and hit the old dusty trail and get on to working on some other projects that I need to do. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, if you're new here, make sure to click that subscribe button and enable notifications. That's the best way to know when I've released a new video. Oh no. Pop that open, and of course it's all dark. Alright everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time for another live stream.